Mary Mary is, I think, the third last Debbie Reynolds film that I have to see. And I was hoping it would be really enjoyable because I kind of wanted to go out on a high. It's not bad. It's not a brilliant film. It was a little slow to start, but generally I would say that I enjoyed it. This was released in 1963, directed by Mervyn LeRoy, with a screenplay by Richard L. Breen. It is based on the play Mary Mary by Jane Kerr. And this focuses on a character called Mary, needless to say, Mary McKellaway, played by Debbie Reynolds. And it's basically about a potential love triangle. There's some deeper backstory regarding the Internal Revenue Service and certain tax deductions done by Mary's soon to be ex husband. They've already filed for divorce. I believe they mentioned in this that the divorce was 2 weeks away or something, so they're very soon to be divorced. They've been separated a pretty decent length of time. Um, but his tax lawyer invites Mary over to see if she can help work out some of these deductions. I don't know why that's so difficult to say. And her ex husband doesn't actually want to see her, but he didn't know she was coming over. And it's all about how they respond to each other. I was going to say what their relationship is like, but there's no single way to define their relationship because there are all kinds of feelings, a lot of animosity, but obviously there's an old spark there. And it's about this little roller coaster they go on over the course of the film as they reminisce. Maybe reminisce is too positive a word, but reflect is more accurate. And Mary also has liaisons with somebody else, and that sparks feelings in Bob, her husband. And just feelings are all over the place. It's definitely, well, the narrative itself is not that interesting. You can sum the narrative up as an ex-husband has potential issues with tax deductions. His current wife, soon to be ex-wife, comes over to help out against his wishes, and emotions are flying everywhere. The narrative itself is not that fascinating. It's definitely character driven. Was I invested in the characters? After a point. Mary is a titular character, was relatively likable. It took me maybe a third of the film to get behind her, to be invested in what she was saying. Not that I agreed with everything she was saying, but to want to understand her motivations, to want to understand her viewpoint. But once I kind of got on board with her as a character and began to like her a bit more, I found that I was becoming more emotionally invested in this, and I was curious to find out what would happen and what the state of the relationship or lack thereof would be between Bob and Mary by the end of the film. It's definitely not a film for people who like things that are high action. The entire thing, or the majority of the entire thing, is set inside this one apartment. And I think they work with the space really well. It doesn't feel stale. It doesn't feel like it was all set in this one place. I'm feeling like that's carried over from the stage play, of course. A lot of plays tend to have minimal scenery or minimal settings because obviously it's difficult to change set designs constantly. But it works well enough. I didn't feel like it was stale or like it wasn't moving forward and that we were just stuck in the same location. So that's just something to bear in mind if you're not a fan of that kind of film. But personally, I think they did it quite well. I was, as I said, emotionally invested eventually, but it did take a little while to get there. Barry Nelson as Bob, Mary's husband, I thought was brilliant. Um, the cast across the board was really good. I thought the acting was phenomenal. A little over the top at times, but it kind of worked with the characters, having their emotions bubbling on the surface and, feelings were flying everywhere. It worked well. There's this one scene that I loved. I say one scene, the entire thing is almost one scene. There are not that many scene changes, but there's this one moment I love. Um, Without spoiling too much, it's the scene with Bob leaving the house, leaving the apartment, just after he takes off Mary's coat. That will not mean anything until you watch it. There's not that much significance in the taking off of the coat. Well, arguably there is, but it's that scene, and I just thought that acting was brilliant. I really enjoyed the performances. The narrative itself, definitely more focused on the characters than the narrative. It was good. I wouldn't say it was phenomenal. I'm glad it's not the last Debbie Reynolds film to see. Um, ironic slip of the tongue since her name is actually Mary Frances Reynolds. Um, though, of course, there are no guarantees that the last few that I have to see are going to be better or worse. We'll see how that goes, but Mary Mary, it took a while to see it because I had to buy the DVD and I had to get it imported from America, and it was a whole faff. It was worth it. It was definitely worth it. If you're a fan of Debbie Reynolds, I'd say absolutely give it a watch if you're a fan of Debbie Reynolds or any of the cast. But if, like me, you have to order in the DVD from America and you're not that bothered about it, maybe put it on the back burner, get round to it eventually, but I wouldn't say it's a film that everybody has to see.